Hi, beautiful soul. It's David Ault. I'm bringing you a traveling edition of The Gathering while I'm on the road teaching. One of the things that I'm doing currently is using this precious, beautiful little book by the Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh called Anger. It's all about how to navigate the experiences of anger in a world that seems to continuously want to spark that and expand that. And the introduction just lays out this one simple fundamental thing, and it is about the necessity for you and I to understand what compassionate listening is. I've often thought about compassionate listening as a correlation of corrective listening. And I'm sure you've been corrected before, where you might be wanting to express a feeling and someone rushes in without even allowing you to finish and says things like, but you have so much to live for, or, yeah, but you have so many things that are going right. And when you can sit back and look at that contextually, you can see that what the person is doing is not just allowing you or I the ability to just get it out, but we're wanting to correct your feelings. And compassionate listening is, as he was describing it, an even more in depth, curated space of just letting another feel. Feel without agenda, feel without being corrected. It's a beautiful little book, and that particular exercise is something that constantly reminds me of how tempted we are to want to change another, their feeling, their experience, mostly because we're uncomfortable. We're taking on. We don't like to hear someone else's upset or pain because perhaps subconsciously it's reminding us of our own. And so we have, dare we say, lost the ability to just kind of be a sacred space for someone to empty that out. So I'm loving the reminder. I'm loving being able to discuss that, particularly in an era where so much of this anger appears to be and continues to look as if it's escalating. What greater gift can you give to someone else than to be willing to practice compassionate listening? So I'm on the road. Last week I was in Reno, Nevada. Again, getting to do what I love to do, to speak and to teach, to do workshops, but also to have these immersive one-on-one sessions if they're open to it and I can put that into my calendar. And thus was the case last weekend in Reno. In the workshop, there was a man in his early 70s. I will call him Bob. And Bob has been living with and navigating Parkinson's now for the last 12 years. He was there at the workshop with the people who love and care for him. He's got a multitude of friends who take turns. Someone lives with him full time. And so you can tell that Bob is very loved and cared for in this community. And Bob wanted to share in this workshop. We were on the topic of worry, and his worry felt as though it was a much more extreme version of it because he doesn't want to live anymore. He's worried about the prolonging of this disease, which has now become more and more difficult, as you can imagine. He's worried about the thoughts that he has about not wanting to live and about being, as he said, too chicken to do anything about it. He's worried about the trying to assure all the other people who love him that he's not going to do something brash. And so you can see this weight of responsibility that's on him just because he doesn't want to be here anymore. He doesn't want to be in this physical body. And it was an opportunity in the moment in that workshop to see if he was comfortable enough to come and stand with me in the center of everybody. It's a big, big auditorium. And as the conversation went on, he was willing, and as the conversation went on, I sort of got behind him and I held him support, and we did a 360 very slowly. And everybody was able to look at him and to tell him how much they loved him, and they said, "We love your beautiful brain." We talked about the fact that even this brain that is experiencing Parkinson's has some type of meticulousness to it, some type of intelligence. So I was a little bit surprised and also overjoyed that he wanted to come see me the next day for one of these one-on-ones. And as he showed up and his caretakers left him there with me, I didn't know quite what we would say or what we would talk about. I knew that it wasn't going to be a traditional session where we pick a problem and then we discuss it and we might uncover some practices or some solutions. There wasn't anything here, and if as a compassionate listener practice person, I wasn't trying to change his big, beautiful brain mind in any way, but to just go, oh, this is my opportunity to just be with him. I did ask him what life was like before the diagnosis. He told me about his love of nature. He told me about long hikes and the ways in which he loved to be outdoors. I asked him a little bit about his ability to walk with his walker that has the wheel on it. Did he ever go outside? And he said, I used to try. And then I learned that the more that I exercised, the more that would prolong my life. And then I go, I don't want to prolong my life. And then I stopped exercising. And then he said, I got scared. I chickened out, and so he's in this tug of war naturally. He talked about the just overcoming feeling and difficulty of waking up in the morning and wishing that he hadn't. So we just sat there, and suddenly I thought, hey, it's a beautiful day. Do you want to go outside? Let's take your walker and maybe we can just walk. We don't have to talk. And he said, yeah. And so we walked out to this immense parking lot that is associated with the Spiritual Center building. Beautiful blue sky, couple of clouds, breeze, just a perfect day. And I looked off over at the other side of the parking lot, and I could see that there was a residential street. I pointed it out to him, and I said, do you feel like you and I can make it over to there? And he said, yeah, and we started wheeling our way over there, and it turned out to be a cul-de-sac, he lives on a cul-de-sac. And he said, oftentimes I just would walk and loop around the cul-de-sac with my little walker. I said, well, here's another cul-de-sac. And we walked around it. There was a little bit of philosophizing about cul-de-sacs and how we just keep doing this in one big loop. And we don't know why. It was fall and the leaves are changing, and we talked about impermanence. Again, nothing prolonged because sometimes it was difficult for him to talk. We circled back into the immense parking lot, walked all the way into the middle of it, and he was tired, so we pulled his little flap seat down, and we looked up at the sky. We looked at the asphalt, and I said, this reminds me of a Joni Mitchell song. And I went, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. And he went, ooh, bop, 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 bop. And I went, you like Joni Mitchell? And he goes, I love Joni Mitchell. And I go, I love Joni Mitchell too. And all of a sudden, he's singing a chorus from another Joni Mitchell song. And we're not talking or trying to solve a problem. We're just singing Joni Mitchell songs in the middle of a parking lot in Reno, Nevada on a beautiful fall day. And then I looked up at the sky, and you can maybe see where this is going. There was these beautiful clouds, and I started to say, I've looked at clouds from both sides now. And he joined me, and we sang. And then I looked at him, and we sang this together, eye to eye, in the middle of that parking lot. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions. I recall, I really don't know life. I really don't know clouds. I really don't understand any of this. And yet here I am. And he was able, in that moment, to go, I don't have to figure this out. I do get to recognize how deeply loved I am. And he was aware from that workshop and from all of and it was his birthday, and they were going to take him out. And he was aware that in many aspects, he was a very rich man, rich in friendship, and that we may not figure out or solve Parkinson's. But perhaps he achieved the greatest thing that any of us can achieve in human form, and that is to love and be loved. And I got to tell him that I loved him. I got to tell him that this was one of the best sessions I had ever had in my entire life. And I thanked him for making the effort to want to come, because he had given me a gift. I figure that things like that are the gifts that await us when we are willing to invest ourselves in being a compassionate listener. That all any of us want is the ability to be heard without judgment, without fixing, without rushing. And yes, it requires spaciousness. And yes, it requires of all of us the practice of the pause. And what I know is that when we are willing to do that for others, in that beautiful lawfulness, it is offered to us as well.